saw a man at the outset insult NABJ. He insulted Rachel Scott, and then he proceeded to then lie. He would not answer the questions. He then kept complaining about the audio and steamrolled. He literally insulted Rachel Scott numerous times. This is the same man who insulted journalists on a daily basis, has called for journalists to be jailed. This is the same man who viciously attacked Yamiche Alcindor, who was sitting right here, April Ryan, Jamel Hill, 3 members of this organization, 3 former journalists of the year of this organization. That's what we saw. Everything that we just witnessed was exactly what we knew was going to happen. And that's exactly what he did.
Some say as journalists, you still need to give him that platform.
No,
What's
you're
your
wrong.
response to that?
Let me explain something to you. We, in our role and our jobs with journalists, here we are members of an organization. That's a difference. We decide who we get to invite in to our room. We get to actually set the ground rules for any conversation. And so what you heard was somebody who filibustered, who lied, who steamrolled, who would not answer the questions. He sat there and gave us an entire rundown of J.D. Vance's bio, which has absolutely nothing to do with Black America and the future of this country.
What do voters take
and so, again, well, first of all, what do voters take away from this? There's an unhinged individual who should never, ever have access to the Oval Office again. That's what voters should take it from you.
What do you say to the people who say that NABJ?
First of all, you say people. Who's people?
Just
No.
Some members of NABJ.
Thank you. You gotta specify.
And members of the public who say, well, NABJ has invited presidential candidates from both sides.
First of all, listen. This is my 35th. Okay, this is my 35th year at NABJ. 1996, Senator Bob Holt and Jack Kemp were at our convention. But let me also remind everybody who's here, Donald Trump was invited to come to our convention in 2016. He declined. He declined in 2017. He declined in 2018. He declined in 2019. He declined in 2020. So let's be real clear about exactly what Donald Trump has actually done. We will never forget how this man has insulted journalists. People need to be aware that right now, journalists have to have security at his rallies because his attendees literally have tried to assault journalists. There has been no individual who has occupied the White House or who has run for the White House who has ever been as anti-media as this man. This man has advocated fake news. And the reason Harris Falker and Fox News should have never been on that stage because they paid a $787 million settlement because they were advancing Donald Trump's lies in the 2020 election. They are still dealing with a lawsuit from Symantec. So NABJ should have never allowed Harris or any representative of Fox News to be on that stage.
What do you think about Kamala Harris now having the discussion of her being on Zoom in September?
Well, first of all, no one said she's going to be on Zoom in September. You heard what Rachel Scott said. They're in conversations about an in-person or a virtual.
If it were to happen, would you like it?
But here's the whole deal. This is what people need to understand. Vice President Kamala Harris, on a consistent basis, meets with Black journalists. She has them on Air Force Two. I know this because I've been one of them. She meets with them regularly around the country. If you want to compare the records, ask this. How many Black journalists, forget this meeting, has Donald Trump sat down with outside of Harris Faulkner? How many Black journalists Donald Trump sat with compared to Vice President Kamala Harris? It ain't even a comparison. So the reality is, it's not even close. She meets with Black journalists in Washington. And the other deal is, we failed as an organization because she could not be here in person. What's the problem with virtual? All of us who are in television, we do satellite interviews via Skype, FaceTime, Zoom, StreamYard, but then we say, oh, we can't take questions from the Democratic nominee because it's going to be virtual. That's nonsensical.
What type of accountability do you want them from the organization?
Well, first and foremost, from an organizational standpoint, they have to admit they screwed up. They have to admit they screwed up with the ground rules. They have to admit they screwed up with the panelists they chose. They have to admit they screwed up with even how this format was set up. This should not have been this nice one, sit down on couches conversation. When Hillary Clinton was here in 2016, she was standing. Folks questions asking if we were standing. When I was on the panel with President George W. Bush, was at Unity in Washington, D.C. in 2004. 2 journalists were on one side, podium in the middle, 2 journalists on the other side. So that's how you question somebody who's the president or running for office.
Bro, was there anything gained today from there? There's some tough questions.
There was absolutely nothing gained today. All we saw was exactly the kind of mean-spirited, nasty, narcissistic lying individual that Donald Trump is. That's what we saw today, which is what we already knew. What this did was embarrass NABJ, because we gave a platform to that which we know was a freak show and an absolute catastrophe. That's what that was.
How does NABJ
Do you think he gained any supporters from his interview?
Hell no.
What do you gain of any shutting down and questioning regarding 2020 Project 2025?
Well, again, first of all, you heard what they said. Well, the Trump team said no more questions. Here's my question from Harris Falcon. Why in the hell wasn't that your first question? As opposed to that softball-ass question, that beach ball question you threw out.
That was the actual question. I was going to ask, what does NABJ do going forward regarding how does it change the perception?
The leadership, well, first of all, I've been in NABJ 35 years. And so we've had our ups and downs. We had challenges where we challenged leadership before, so those things have happened. But our leadership, top to bottom, should be examining every single decision that they made and how this entire event came about. Because again, what we saw was what many of us said was going to happen.
And then last quick question. So just to play devil's advocate, you know it's going to come up online and whatnot. So does this, if NABJ were to disinvite or maybe never invite former President Trump, does it set a precedent for any other candidate or former president who might say things that are deemed as disrespectful or outrageous, irresponsible?
Let me say it again.
Does it set a precedent to
NABJ, let me be real clear, we can determine who we want to invite. See, this is what I need everybody to understand. The job that you have every day as a journalist is separate from being a member of an organization. When we as an organization send out a statement, we don't have to have both sides quoted in the statement. It's a statement. We can say whatever we want in our statement. So the problem that we often run into is we keep saying, hey, we're journalists. No, that's in your day job. When you're in your membership role, that's a different responsibility. I'm a 3-time board member. I understand the difference between me standing as a board member. Listen, 2011, when we gave a thumbs down to MSNBC, CNN, and others for not hiring black folks, people were on the board. They said, Roland, hey man, you really shouldn't vote on this, because you're in a position to get a show on CNN. I said, as a vice president, I wasn't elected to make decisions that benefited me personally. I am to vote based upon my job as a vice president for the whole organization. So I voted to give us a thumbs down award. That's the difference between what your daily job is and then what your membership role is.
Do you agree with comments that NABJ leadership has been bought?
No, first of all, if someone says has been bought, first question, who bought them, how much? If you don't have any facts, then that's just not throwing out some nonsense.
How do we fix it? How do we bring unity amongst the members? Because online, everywhere you're looking, there's almost a divide amongst
Of course it is.
the members. So
The first thing is leadership has to be fully transparent. What happened? How were panelists picked? How did this whole thing come out? We haven't fully gotten that. Okay? So the Vice President Kamala Harris campaign, they've said that they offered for her to be virtual, and NABJ turned them down. Well, I've heard folks say, well, NABJ didn't turn them down. Okay, what's true or not?
right.
Did they offer, and did you turn them down or not? So you gotta be transparent and clear. And whatever heat comes with being transparent, that's the heat that you accept when you get in leadership. When you choose to run for office, from the president on down, you accept the reality that you might catch some heat for your decision. That's the point of leadership.